All right, so question number 10 has to do with the last paragraph, and we haven't read that. And the only other thing that we haven't read is that second to last paragraph, so lines 54, 52 through 76, so right here. We need to read this too. And after we do that, we've read the whole thing. And then we can go back to questions 1 and 2 in which we skipped those general questions. So let's just read this. This is what I mean piece by piece, reading piece by piece. The piece by piece strategy is reading the passage piece by piece as we're doing the questions. So might as well read the second to last paragraph as well so we can just finish up the whole passage. Maps of the early town afforded my father great joy, and his collection of old photographs of the edifices and objects of the vanished city was second to none. In these faded images were resurrected the demolished fort, the breakfast bazaar market outside the teen darvaza or bazaar gate, and the humble mutton shops and umbrella hospitals of the poor, as well as the fallen palaces of the great. The early city's relics filled his imagination as well as his photo albums. It was from my father that I learned of Bombay's first great photographers, Raja Deen Dayal and A.R. Hassler, whose portraits of the city became my first artistic influences, if only by showing me what I did not want to do. Dayal climbed the Rajabai Tower to create his sweeping panoramas of the birth of the city. Hassler went one better and took to the air. Their images were awe-inspiring, unforgettable, but they also inspired in me a desperate need to get back down to ground level. From the heights, you see only pinnacles. I yearned for the city streets, the knife grinders, the water carriers, the pavement moneylenders, the peremptory soldiers, the railway hordes, the chess players in the Irani restaurants, the snake-buckled schoolchildren, the beggars, the fishermen, the movie makers, the dockers, the book sewers, the loom operators, the priests. I yearned for life. When I said this to my father, he showed me photos, still lives of storefronts and piers, and told me I was too young to understand. See where people lived and worked and shopped, he clarified, with a rare flash of irritation, and it becomes plain what they were like. For all his digging, Vivi Merchant was content with the surfaces of his world. I, his photographer's son, set out to prove him wrong, to show that a camera can see beyond the surface, beyond the trappings of the actual, and penetrate to its flesh and heart. Okay, so obviously over here, his father's talking about just all the like places. If I wanted to take some notes, like places, father, I'll put a plus sign. He likes all the different areas, and these are like the photographers. They're talking about far out stuff, like the panoramas, taking to the air. Raja Deen Dayal, A.R. Hassler, they like from a distance. But the narrator wants close in, the people. Obviously, the father says, see where people lived and worked and shopped, and it becomes plain where they were like. So he likes the places where they shopped. So all these notes, they just have to make sense to me when I'm doing it. So in your case, it doesn't have to be long sentences. The shorter, the better. And you don't need to obviously annotate every single little thing. Just do what you need to. Now let's look at question number 10. In the last paragraph, the narrator's father shows the narrator the photos of storefronts and piers in order to So it says, when I said this to my father, he showed me photos, still lives of storefronts and piers, and told me I was too young to understand. See where people lived and worked and shopped, and it becomes plain what they were like. So he's saying, hey, look at the storefronts and piers. You can look at those to see what the people are like. So that's our answer. We're creating that answer based off of the information passage. Next step is to go back and eliminate the answer choices that are least like our answer. Teach the narrator about the commercial progress the people who work in Bombay have made. No. He's not saying, hey, look at the commercial progress that all these people have made. No. Convince the narrator that Dial and Hassler were Bombay's first great photographers. Does he say here, hey, these two, Dial and Hassler, were the first great photographers? No, not at all. Clarify his claim that his photo collection was not about modern day Bombay, but rather about early 20th century? No. So we're left with J. Illustrate that photos of places can reveal as much about the people who spent time there as photos of the people themselves. Yes. That sounds most like the answer we created. Again, see where people lived and worked and shopped, and it becomes plain what they were like. Again, the answer is directly in the passage. If it's not in the passage, it can't be right. Now we can go back to 1 and 2. So I'm going to do 2 first because it actually is in the same area as number 10. The narrator describes the photos by Bombay's first great photographers as primarily inspiring the narrator to. So it says, if you go here, their images were awe-inspiring, unforgettable, but they also inspired in me a desperate need to get back down to ground level. And then it says, Raja Deen Dayal and A.R. Hassler, whose portraits of the city became my first artistic influence, if only by showing me what I did not want to do. So he did not want to do these panoramas and do things from air and far out. He wanted to do stuff from ground level. So those two things are huge. So inspire the narrator to get down to the ground level. Turn away from a career in photography, no. Create grand panoramas of the new Bombay, no, that's the opposite. He wanted to do the opposite. Produce images that his father would add to his collection, no. Photograph subjects that depict everyday life on Bombay streets, yes. These are the examples right here. I yearned for the city streets, the knife grinders, all here. And now we're back to number 1, our last question that we need to do, and then we'll be done with the passage. The passage as a whole can primarily be characterized as the narrator's what? We could probably answer this ourselves. Basically, the passage as a whole is the narrator's, he basically talks about Bombay, city, his parents, photography. That's going to be my answer. So, explanation of the relationship the narrator and his parents had with the city of Bombay. Yeah, I'd say so. Let's just keep this for now. Description of important buildings and locations, Bombay. That's not the primary purpose of the passage at all. Description of argument for Bombay's prominence in the world of architecture. Anywhere in this passage do we see any arguments that the narrator makes that Bombay should be, this or the best city for architecture? No. And that's not the primary purpose of the passage either. Concerns about the emotional environment in which the narrator was raised? no concerns. So A matches up with what we said, Bombay, parents, explanation of relationship the narrator and his parents had with the city of Bombay. So that one fits the most. So that's it. Again, hopefully this shows you the piece-by-piece strategy. We read the first paragraph of the passage and then kind of took a couple notes in terms of what the main purpose was, and then we kind of went to the answers starting with the specific questions first and going back to the general questions and kind of taking the passage piece by piece. In this way, it's a lot easier to kind of digest the passage rather than reading the entire passage and then going into the questions and then coming back to the passage and just being confused in terms of where to go. It's a lot more efficient and it takes a lot less time. So hopefully that helped, and I'll see you later.